Welcome to Creepy Scary. Tonight's episode comes from our Nightmares and Night Terrors series. Sometimes night terrors don't stop, even when you get older.
Nightmares can get more complicated and have many levels.
The lines between real and imaginary become blurred. How do you know what is real? Our first story tonight, Real or Not Real, offers no answers. I've been seeing my psychiatrist, Dr. Rosen, for several years. He specializes in sleep disorders and medicine. I suffer from a parasomnia disorder. When I was younger, I started getting night terrors. Frightening but vague figures would appear in my sleep. I would wake up terrified and sweating. I didn't remember many details of what had happened, only the figures I saw. Sometimes I would sleepwalk and scare my parents. I ended up with sleep deprivation, which made the terrors worse. I also had nightmares. They were far more vivid. These I would remember, even small details. I could taste and smell things in my dreams. Smelling or tasting the same things in the real world would trigger memories of that dream. Often I dreamt I was in some sort of conflict or danger. I would lash out and wake up in pain with blood on my knuckles because I had punched the bed frame. If I woke up before I could do anything to protect myself, it would make me angry. I wanted to go back into the dream and win. I tried different medications over the years, prescription and otherwise. I even tried psychedelics. Nothing worked for long. I got a reprieve for a week or two, but the nightmares and night terrors always returned. When you suffer with them for years, even into adulthood, it drains you and overtakes your whole life. The sleep deprivation becomes severe and you walk around like a zombie. It's not a good idea to operate heavy machinery. Most of the time, I'm caught between several realities. The fatigue is so bad that it's hard to determine what is a dream and what isn't. In the past 6 months, it has gotten much worse, but I'm not sure why. I spent several nights at Dr. Rosen's clinic doing overnight sleep studies. The staff attached sensors to me to track and record my brainwaves. They checked my heart rate, breathing, and blood oxygen levels. They also videotaped me because I sleepwalk. Dr. Rosen told me they had a breakthrough. He knew the reason I was experiencing the nightmares. He had a way to block them. But unfortunately, it meant I would no longer dream at all. That sounded fantastic to me. I was ready to try anything. The treatment involved medication and imagery reversal therapy. I could go back and change the endings of my nightmares. Finally, I could win. That turned out to be another dream. I didn't do any tests at the clinic. Dr. Rosen couldn't help me, unless I'm in another dream within that dream, or something like that. I'm lost. There are so many levels to this. I'm never sure which level I'm on. Is it real or a dream within a dream within a dream? I wake up some days and I'm in my bed and it's like any other day. I get up and get ready. Everything seems normal. An hour in and the walls melt and I realize I'm still asleep, or I'm dreaming while I'm awake. I have learned to talk myself down most of the time, no matter how real something seems. When a whale is flying overhead and I'm in the middle of a city, I know it's not real. I use my subconscious to control my actions. If I go into the bank and the teller is a werewolf, sometimes I don't notice straight away. If I do, I ignore it and carry on as though it's nothing out of the ordinary, in case I'm in a bank and I'm not dreaming, only seeing things. I recently spent a week in Paris with my girlfriend. It was my first time there. I took her to the Jules Verne restaurant at the Eiffel Tower. We sat looking down the Champ de Mars and ate a delightful meal. I found out during a therapy session when I got back that this never happened. There's no girlfriend and I've never been to France. The restaurant and view seemed so real. I traced it back to watching an old Roger Moore James Bond film, the one where he meets a contact at the Eiffel Tower. I could taste the food, hear the hubbub of the restaurant, feel the touch of my girlfriend, feel love. I realized my girlfriend is an amalgam of 3 models I follow on the internet. I combined them using an AI program. For that short period in France, she was as real as you are to yourself right now. If you are real, of course. Ask yourself that one and see if you don't start questioning everything you know. There's a chance we're all plugged into the Matrix. If I dream I had a great experience, even though it wasn't real, does it matter as long as I'm happy? Real life is a string of good and bad experiences with associated emotions. So are my dreams. If I could dream that I'm a doctor, I could diagnose myself. Dr. Rosen is not offering much. Hang on, am I Dr. Rosen? The nightmares and night terrors roll on. I'm on my way to South America. It's the 70s and I'm going to meet Pablo Escobar. Of course, I know this is not real. It can't be. But I'm going with it. Partaking in illicit substances in your dreams seems harmless. I've experienced this dream a few times. It all comes tumbling down when the feds arrest me with a plane load of contraband on the way back to the US. Then I worry I will have to do 30 years in prison in my mind. Is that going to be a real 30 years? Am I zombied out in a hospital ward the whole time? I'm sitting in a cell hoping that I'm going all Disney tonight. Being a cartoon prince is usually fun. I always win. I always get the girl. Oh, hold on to that thought. It looks like I'm back at home. If this is home.
Who are you?
Wasn't that fun? This next person thought nightmares and night terrors were a thing of the past. Then his parents decided to move the family across the country. Now he yearns for the comforting sounds of city traffic and gunshots to help him sleep. Please enjoy Reflection of Character. From an early age, strange and terrifying dreams always plagued me. They seemed real, no matter how unrealistic they were. I felt paranoid and uneasy when I woke up after one. A few years ago, the dream stopped. I don't know why, they just did. Then my parents moved us across the country to Oregon for what they call a better life. The dream started again. Our new house is in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in an urban area with the city noise as a background. Where we live now is much different. The silence at night is deafening. I hear every little sound. Animals, birds, the wind blowing through the trees, everything. My parents' paradise is my nightmare. I can't call my friends to go out for a pizza. I have no friends here. There's nothing open after 10 p.m. or closer than 4 miles anyway. When we lived in the city, I walked and used public transport to get around. Now I have to ask permission to use the car when I want to go anywhere. Many of the dreams I used to have returned. One in particular. It's the same scenario every time. I'm running through a plowed field. The only light is a full moon. The field has no boundaries. The dry soil crunches underneath my feet as I run. It gives way with every step and saps my energy. My legs drag and feel like lead. I have to fight for every breath. The dream ends with a herd of demonic-sounding creatures chasing me as I run toward a mirror. I can't look back to see them, but I can hear them bounding through the field, their heavy hooves pounding in the dirt, and their hot breath on my neck. The mirror is one of those old-fashioned types with an ornate gold frame. It glints in the moonlight. I'm always drawn to it, but never reach it. I searched the internet and various YouTube channels for help. Some of them said you should never stare into a mirror during a nightmare. Mirrors reflect what you're expecting to see and any negative feelings. There is also a danger of demonic or scary reflections of yourself. Looking in the mirror had never been an option. I never got close enough. After reading about the dangers, I thought a lot about what I would see in it. Could it be as dangerous as people warned? Or were they amping things up to get clicks? It is a dream after all, not reality. What could happen to me except that I wake up? Nothing in a dream is real. I made up my mind. The next time I had the dream, I was going to look in the mirror, despite the warnings. Like clockwork, the dream came again. I was running and creatures were chasing me, but this time I got close enough to the mirror to see my reflection. I had a twisted, sinister grin on my face. My eyes were dark and malevolent. I felt scared of myself. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. My reflection was mesmerizing. The creatures were almost upon me, but the mirror pulled me in before they got to me. It dragged me into some sort of alternative world. Everything looked twisted and distorted. I could hear screams coming from different directions. The ground was hard and slick with blood. In the distance, I could see a figure at the end of a long, winding path. I kept running toward it. I got closer. The figure was me, somehow manipulating my dream. I blacked out for a few seconds, and then I was in the open field once again, running toward the mirror. I was in some sort of loop. Then I woke up, and I was at home in bed. A few weeks went by, and I had the same dream every night. I became withdrawn from my day-to-day life. Something was watching me all the time. I told myself it wasn't real, but it made no difference. My parents kept asking if I was okay. I rarely left my room. The mirror was the key. I had to destroy it. It was controlling my whole life. I had a plan for next time. It came around soon enough. I was back in an open field again, approaching the mirror. The creatures were chasing me. As I got close, I didn't give the mirror a chance to pull me in. I bent down and scooped up a rock. I got within a few feet and threw it as hard as I could at the mirror. The mirror shattered, the shards of glass scattered everywhere. The twisted reflection of me disappeared. When I woke up, my sweat had soaked my bed, as though I had been running through a field for real, except now a sense of relief washed over me. I felt free. That was the last time I dreamt about the mirror, but I think about it all the time, usually when I'm at home on my own. The malevolent being is inside me, waiting to return, to hurt me or someone else. The dreams have stopped and I'm sleeping well every night, but I'm still not enjoying Oregon. The person in the last story had trouble sleeping. They should have tried reading a book. It always makes me nod off. Unless it's tonight's story. I present the Caramel Gnome. Everyone loves a good story. When you find an author that speaks to you, they can't publish their next book fast enough. Who knows? One day you may even get to meet your literary hero. Be careful what you wish for.
Night terrors come to me like a ghost whispering and creeping into my mind, taking hold of my thoughts. They wrap around me like a cold, clammy blanket that I cannot escape. I try to fight back, but my body feels heavy and unresponsive. I'm trapped in my mind, a prisoner of my thoughts. The darkness drags me into an endless void. Then I see the monster that haunts me. Its eyes are black pits, its mouth a gaping, dripping cesspool. It reaches for me with its raw, bloody hands. There's nothing I can do to stop it.
I listened to the first chapter of horror author Aidan Blackwood's latest book, a collection of modern nightmares. I'm excited when he publishes a new book. He's my favorite author. I count down the days to the next one. I buy the first edition hardback, but I never touch it as I want to keep it mint for my collection. I also get the audio and Kindle versions. I like to listen at home and when I'm on the school bus. I know an actor is reading it, but I imagine it's Aidan. His new one is especially poignant. It's a collection of short stories about nightmares and night terrors. In the past, he hit home for me with some of his stories. It was as though he was reading my mind. That's why I became such a big fan of his. He knew me, even though he didn't. His stories take place in the same East Coast area I live in. When you recognize the places he's talking about, it makes it more personal and real. Last summer, I went on an unofficial Blackwood book tour. The tour visits some of the locations he uses in his books. He never gives them away, but the clues are there. It's fun to find out if some fictional place is real. Of course, he denies he based any of the locations in the books on real places. Sometimes it's obvious. Being the first person to uncover one can make you a mini celebrity online. It's never happened to me yet, though. Perhaps it will in his new book. No one knows Aidan's real identity. He publishes his books with a cover, his name, and a short bio. No picture. He might not even be a he. There are many theories online about Aidan's identity. No one has proven any of them so far. There's a lot of posts that claim he's a famous writer using a pen name, Dean Koontz or Stephen King. It would be nice to know who he is, but I suppose it doesn't matter who the author is if the books are good. Whoever writes them is a genius and graphic writer who speaks to my soul.
I lay in my bed, eyes wide open, staring into the darkness. I can feel something watching me, lurking beyond the edge of my vision. It's waiting for me to let my guard down again so it can get in. There was a loud bang downstairs. I screamed, but no sound emerged. It was as though someone had muted my voice.
I listened to the new book. The stories were straight out of my nightmares. It was uncanny. My nightmares peaked when I was in my early teens. My parents took me to see a psychiatrist, Dr. Bellingham. He would not have been my first choice, but I didn't get a choice. They only picked him because he knew my uncle from his Masonic lodge. They got the family discount. He was a strange man. He hardly said anything. It was more like self-therapy. I spoke until I came up with a solution to that week's problem, or until the timer ran out. He recorded all the sessions and wrote notes. When the session finished, it always ended the same way. He told me I was doing well and he would see me next week. It seemed like a scam. My parents dropped me off every Saturday morning, then went to the supermarket. They never asked me anything more than how it went. They didn't want details. Like many things in our family, they saw it as another problem taken care of. There was no need to address it any further and cause an issue. Dr. Bellingham knew best because he's a doctor. They paid him to solve this problem for them. That was that. Dad was more interested in sports than me. Mum's life was all reality TV and celebrity gossip. They hardly ever spoke to one another. Why they stayed together, I'll never know. I suspect that having me and the fact they couldn't afford to get divorced was the reason. I got halfway through the new book. Aidan hit the nail on the head like he always did. His books did more for my mental health than stuffy old Dr. Bellingham.
And then, as soon as it begins, it's over. I wake up back in my room, safe and sound, but the memory of the terror lingers, like a bad taste that won't go away. I know the night terror will return, and I brace myself for the next encounter, because in this darkness, I am not alone. Something haunts me beyond my understanding.
The second short story hit closer to home than ever before. Too close. In our front yard, we had a caramel-colored gnome. It was hideous. Dad picked it up from a garage sale. The seller said it was a good luck charm. It was a regular gnome that someone had painted. Dad only did it to get at Mum, I was sure. She was fussy about the front of the house. It had to be immaculate for the neighbors. She had hired and fired 5 gardeners in the last few years because they didn't clean the yard up to her high standards. Mum hated the gnome. The atmosphere in the house became unbearable whenever the subject came up. It got so bad that sometimes I stayed at my friend Stacy's house. 2 adults arguing about a stupid gnome seemed crazy. Despite Mum's objections, Dad insisted we keep it. He said it would bring our family good luck. It was also somewhere to hide a spare front door key. I spoke about the gnome incident with Dr. Bellingham. Or rather, I discussed it with myself in his office while he took notes. The conflict passed. Dad somehow got his way and the gnome stayed. He must have paid Mum because usually she got her own way. In Aidan's new book, he had a story about a caramel-colored gnome. It was also a good luck charm. In his story, the guy found it in a charity shop. It came with instructions. If you asked it for something, it would make it come true, like a genie. The buyer in the story asked for money and got it. As with all these tales, there was a cost each time anyone used the figure. The family became rich, but it was from the husband's death. His life insurance paid out after an accident. That's not an original story. I've read a few different versions of it. I didn't think it was up to Aidan's usual standards. But a caramel gnome? I thought we had the only one in existence, unless the person who sold it had a set of them. I asked Dad about it. He said the guy only had one when he bought it. I did some research online. I found some handcrafted ones for sale. They were more common than I thought. No big deal. I was only looking for some connection to Aidan, but it seemed like nothing. A coincidence. I read the rest of the book, and several of the other stories were familiar. The daughter in one story was seeing a psychiatrist. No big deal. But that girl's parents didn't show any interest in her either. Story after story sounded familiar and related to me and my life, but with a few subtle differences. I spoke to my friends. They said I had become obsessed with Aidan. I could connect anything to him. I spent hours searching for more information about him. The only thing I found was a P.O. box. It was in the next town where I did the book tour. There were a lot of fake AI photos of what people thought he looked like, but no concrete evidence of his identity. Saturday came around again and I went to Dr. Bellingham as usual. 10 minutes into the session, his secretary buzzed him. He asked me to excuse him for a few minutes. There was a problem with his son. He had to speak to his wife. I sat in silence for a while. His secretary poked her head around the door and asked if I wanted anything, and I told her I was fine. She said he would be gone for about 20 minutes and asked if I would be okay waiting. I wasn't going anywhere without my parents, so I agreed. He left the folder with his notes about me open on the desk. I know it's bad, but I had to look at them. There was nothing strange in there. He had a list of words I used. He numbered some things I had spoken about and put a timestamp from his voice recorder next to the sentence. Some sentences had a star next to them. I sat back down and the secretary came in again. Dr. Bellingham would be back in 10 minutes. Once she left, I went to his bookshelf and pulled out some of his textbooks. I looked up some things he had put a star next to on my notes. A bookmark dropped out. I bent down to pick it up. At the bottom of the bookshelf, there was a sliding door with some papers sticking out. I slid it open and struck gold. Dr. Bellingham was an Aidan Blackwood fan. Could he have got that from listening to me? I spoke about Aidan all the time during the sessions. Having a real doctor read Aidan's stuff because of me was on another level. I pulled out some more of the books. They were all autographed. He had several copies of each book. He must be a bigger Aidan fan than me. Then I found some more folders. They were all handwritten notes. They outlined a book and referenced other patients. Then I found notes that referenced me. No, Dr. Bellingham is Aidan. No way. I dropped the folder, backed away and sat on the floor. I felt so betrayed and confused. My heart was pounding hard. The secretary came in and asked what I was doing. I told her as I sat there sobbing. She looked shocked and picked up some notes and read them, then called my parents. By the time they arrived, Dr. Bellingham had phoned and said his son was in the ER and he would not be coming back. Dad was furious when he saw what had been going on. He got the notes that referenced me and took them for evidence. I don't know what was worse, Dad reading about my sexual fantasies, or my hero is some sicko using his patients' confidential information to make money. My parents took me to a lawyer the same day. Dr. Bellingham lost his license. His wife left him and took their son. He had used his patients' private sessions to write the Aidan Blackwood books for years. When the case went to court, I got some major ribbing from my friends. Dr. Bellingham's picture appeared on every news website. Someone stuck one on my locker door with Jane's husband written on it. I laughed along with them. What else could I do? I deserved it for being stupid enough to become obsessed with someone famous. We moved to a new town a few months after the court case. The payout we got helped. It was a hard time for me. I had to make new friends all over again. I never found that easy, but the other kids had made my life unbearable. We had to go. Dad insisted it was the luck brought by the Caramel Gnome that won the money. Lucky for who? I didn't feel lucky. Mum tried to throw the gnome away again while we were moving. Dad rescued it from the trash and took it to the new house. They argued about it again, but it stayed. Dad went away on a business trip a few months later. Mum had a garage sale and the gnome was gone. I tried reading other horror authors, but I couldn't get into any of them. Despite what had happened, the Blackwood books were still my favorite. Mum had thrown all my copies away, but I read them online every now and then. There were no new Aidan Blackwood books for 3 years. Then I got an email from the fan website. They announced a new series. Under the terms of his conviction, it allowed Jules Bellingham to write again. He could use the Blackwood name, but the stories had to be 100% fiction. People have short memories. The outrage they showed at the time of the court case had long since subsided. The new books did well, and he was more popular than ever. I read them, but I didn't tell anyone. Even without his patient's notes for the stories, the books were okay, but it wasn't the same anymore.
The Hatchet Man, Chapter 1. John Blockley emerged from the overbearing prison gates. They had cast a ghost-like shadow over his entire being for 10 years. He stopped and looked back, shivering in the rain. Then he walked into the open arms of his beautiful wife, Bella, and his now teenage son, Clint. Except there was no Bella. There was no Clint. They were both dead, taken by the evil that still haunted him.
If you want even more scares, then check out this next video. Also, don't forget to subscribe.